not have been possible without the generous support of the Adibekyan Family Foundation. Thank you so much to this foundation for enabling all of our students to travel from Armenia and from Artsakh. And to our students, I'm so excited that you get an opportunity to meet with and learn from two astronauts, engineers, and just incredible people, Chris Hatfield and Jim Bagyan, as we would say in Armenia. And to that end, I'm excited to first welcome Chris Hatfield on the stage. Thank you.
Good afternoon. And Larissa, thank you very much for the introduction. I've always wanted to be that person right there. I dreamed someday of having a chance to try and turn myself into that person on the left. But this was my reality. This was me when I was 10 years old. And I was dreaming all kinds of things. I was dreaming about science fiction. I was reading science fiction books. I was watching Star Trek on television. I watched the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey. And I didn't see any connection between me and who I wanted to be, especially because I was living out in the country. I'm from Canada. We didn't have astronauts, and we didn't have rocket ships, and we didn't have NASA, I didn't see any possible way that I could turn that little boy into someone who could maybe fly in space until something happened. When I was 10 years old, a guy named Mike grabbed his camera and took that picture. And Mike Collins had just gotten his two friends dressed, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, and they were in that ship to try and go down and land on the moon for the very first time. And for me, as a 10-year-old Canadian kid, this was like a door being opened. If they could go do that, then maybe someday I could go do that. And amazingly enough, on July the 20th, Neil and Buzz stepped onto the surface, and it was Buzz Aldrin who took this picture. He stepped forward and stepped back and leaned over with his camera and took a picture of a human imprint somewhere besides the Earth. But it wasn't done by magic. It wasn't done by heroes. It was just done by three people. And that's Neil and Mike and Buzz. And I looked at them and I thought, they're not special. They're not movie stars. They're not handsome. They're just people. And I thought if they could somehow turn themselves into somebody who could walk on the moon, then maybe I could too. But think of what they had to do. They had to change who they were. They had to learn all sorts of new things. And once they changed who they were as a person, then the three of them had to change what three people could do. And then they had to include everybody at NASA, everybody in the space business. But I looked at them and I thought, well, if they could do it, then maybe I could do it. So what's the first step? If you want to fly in space, what do? And I thought, well, they fly. They fly in space. I need to learn how to fly. So in Canada, we have the air kids. And when I was 14 years old, I started flying airplanes. And I got my license when I was 15 for gliders, and then the summer that I turned 16, I learned to fly powered airplanes. But it wasn't just flying. I was going to need to learn complicated technical things, and so I knew I was going to have to go to university and study something technical. And so I went to university in Canada, to the military academy. I ended up going to 4 different universities. But I knew that a lot of pilots, or a lot of astronauts were pilots. And so I joined the Air Force, and I became an F-18 pilot, and intercepting Soviet bombers that were practicing attacking North America in the middle of the Cold War. But even that, if you want to do something different with your life, you're going to need to change who you are. And you can do it on purpose. And so I kept looking for new skills. I thought, okay, I'm already a pilot, but I needed to be a test pilot. And I applied through the Air Force, and they sent me to California to go train with the American Air Force. And I flew a bunch of different airplanes with the American Air Force. But after all of that, after dreaming and reading and studying and training and practicing, then Canada decided to have astronauts. And they stuck an ad in the newspaper that said, if you want to be an astronaut, send in your application. And so I sent my application in with 5,000 other people. But because of all of the things that I've done to change myself and to gain skills, I got picked and sent down to Houston, Texas, to join with NASA. And I don't know how well you can see all of those faces, but just look at them. Those are little kids from all around the world. Little kids who dreamed about maybe someday doing something really different, and then who changed who they were, who studied and learned and practiced so that they could get in this picture. Different languages, different religions, different cultures, but everybody hoping that someday they could learn enough that they would be trusted to do something like this. As part of the flight, the power of that machine, it just crushes you in your chair. It shakes your whole body. You can't even focus on the instruments. It's like 3 people are jumping up and down on you and shaking you. You can't focus because the vibration's so high. And after just 45 seconds, you go through the speed of sound, accelerating straight up. And then after 2 minutes, those big white solid rockets explode off and fall into the ocean. That's you. You're that little star accelerating away. And if you look at the top corner, that's the number of seconds since you were on Earth. 136 seconds ago, you were on Earth. And now look where you are. And for the next 8 minutes, or 6 minutes, those big engines push you faster and faster. And it gets heavier and heavier and heavier. It's like someone's pouring sand on top of you until it's hard to even breathe and push your chest forward. But finally, after 8 minutes and 40 seconds, that machine has got you to the right height and perfectly the right direction, exactly the right speed, and the engine shut off, and you're weightless. So what would you do then? What would you do if you just went into space? What everybody wants to do is get to the window and for the first time in their life, truly see the world. And it is just so unbelievably beautiful to see, that's Cuba and Florida and the Bahamas, all the way to Canada in just a glimpse out the window. Or all of England and Ireland and the Northern Lights and a little bit of France. Or all of Northern Europe. There's Norway and Sweden and Denmark and Finland and Northern Germany. Or you can look right across Lake Van and Mount Ararat, and you can see Yerevan and Lake Seven in just one glance out the window. And if you wait and you get a big lens and you look straight down, you can see Yerevan. This is a picture from the space station of Yerevan, and in fact, where we're sitting right now. And you go around the world 16 times a day, every 90 minutes. I mean, what did you do in the last 90 minutes? You could have gone all the way around the world once. And it's just such an amazing place, the International Space Station. I was the commander of this station. It's huge. It's as big as a football pitch, a football field. It weighs, half it's going 8 kilometers a second. Imagine if something was outside the stadium here that was the size of a football field, and 1 second later, it was 8 kilometers away. It's an amazing big laboratory in space, but it's also a fun place where if you spill your water, it floats there in space next to you. Or you can pull your knees up to your chest and just do 100 somersaults. You're like the world's greatest acrobat, the world's greatest gymnast. Or you can float like Tracy to the window and just watch the world pour by underneath you with this quiet serenity. It's so beautiful. It's not good for your hair up there. Your hair goes all over the place in space, like Marsha here. But it's also hard on your body. This is a woman's body and a man's body, and it changes your balance. It changes your vision. It changes your bones. There's a lot of changes to your body. And so we think very carefully about what we're going to eat when we're out there. And we choose food before we fly. And it all has to be in little packages. Like this is old space food and this is new space food here. It's like being on a camping trip for 6 months. But it's fun. The food's okay. I wouldn't go to space just for the food, but the food is fine on board a spaceship. That's spinach right there. But it's also a huge amount of work. The space station is a laboratory with 200 experiments. And it's a very dangerous place to be. If you sit really quiet on the spaceship and wait, you can hear meteorites hit your ship and ricochet out. It's a dangerous place. And so if you're the commander, how would you do your job? How would you take care of your crew? I thought it'd be fun if we all got Hawaiian shirts and had a party every week. You know, have a luau every week. Why not? You know, you're just people in a different place. But sometimes you get to go outside. And I've done 2 spacewalks. It's an incredible place to be. In the sun, on my chest, it's 250 degrees. And in the shade, it's minus 100 degrees. And you're constantly hit by little meteorites. And the suit is super uncomfortable. When you come back from a spacewalk, your hands are bloody. And you've worn skin off your shoulders and your knees. The suits are super uncomfortable. But it's also magnificent because you are alone in the universe. And the world is turning silently next to you, like a giant kaleidoscope. And you go from night to day to night to day. I spent about 15 hours outside over 2 spacewalks, 10 times around the world. And at one point, while I was outside, we went through the world's aurora. And this isn't a computer graphic. This is what it looks like when you are outside of a spaceship on a spacewalk and you're going through the northern lights or through the southern lights. And they were pouring around our ship and pouring between my legs. I couldn't believe how beautiful our world is. And what a privilege it was to be one of the very few people who had a chance to not just see that, but to experience that. Oh, by the way, at the end of my talk, I'm going to come down and see if anybody has any questions. So if you're thinking of any questions, I'll be down in a couple minutes and I'll try and answer your questions as well. So where are we going now? What's next? We discovered something about the moon in the last couple years that is brand new. From the Apollo guys, we knew that the moon is a desert, but it's not a desert if you go to the South Pole. The South Pole, the craters are full of water. It's ice, but it's water. And if you total it all up, it's about 400 billion liters of water. It's like more than Lake 7. of water on the moon. And the hilltops are always in the sun. So if you have power from the sun and water, then you can live on the moon. You just need a good house. And that's where we're going next. 77 countries of the world have space agencies, and they're all thinking about how we're going to go to the moon. NASA has built this rocket called Artemis, and this vehicle is pretty soon going to launch with just on a test flight, but the next flight after that, it'll take people to the moon. So NASA is building a moon rocket. And that's the profile it'll follow. It'll be about a month where it'll go out around the moon and check things and come back. So that's happening right now. But there's also a lot of other cool technology that's happened in the last little while. Like Richard Branson and Virgin Galactic with this little ship, where you can buy a ticket for the price of an expensive car. If you're the type of person who can afford a luxury car, then you can buy a ticket to fly in space. Or Blue Origin, where you can buy a ticket to fly in space. And this is that little ship coming back. It's just a short space flight. When you fly with them, you just go up, and you just get to the very bottom of space, and then you come down, and one of them lands on the runway, and the other comes in under a parachute. So that's brand new, that people could buy a ticket and fly in space. And SpaceX, with Elon Musk, they don't just go up and come down, but their vehicles can get you all the way to orbit. And he's built reusable rocket ships that come back and land. And he's building a new rocket ship where the entire rocket ship is reusable. He calls it Starship. And this isn't just a drawing. They've actually flown Starship on an early test flight. You can fly the whole thing over and over again, and it should fly later this year, not just up and down, but to orbit the world. And NASA has looked at that and said, that's the vehicle we want to go to the moon with. And they're working with SpaceX to try and help fund it. And you don't have to look very far in the future to realize that if you have power from the sun, and if you have water from the ground, then you can start to build a permanent human settlement somewhere besides the Earth. Just like we've been living on the space station for the last 22 years. But it only matters to Earth. We have serious problems to solve here on Earth. Political problems, territorial problems, pollution problems, climate problems. But that's nothing new. We've always had serious problems on Earth. It's really up to us to figure out how are we going to change who we are to be able to deal with the problems that exist today. And how do we give young people the education and the vision of the future so that they can visualize something different than you had when you were their age. And this is NASA's current crop of astronauts. These are the newest astronauts that NASA just hired. And it's really important that the astronauts can be an example so that you can look at them and maybe see yourself. If you can imagine any one of those people when they were a little kid, they changed who they were to become someone who's going to fly in space. Okay, I'm going to bring us back home, and then I'll see if anybody has any questions. And then maybe I'll finish by playing this guitar. We'll see. All right. On my third space flight, I was the pilot of the Soyuz. Я не уверен, если вы говорите по-русски, но я был летчик Союза на третьем полете в космос. И это маленький корабль. This is only a very small spaceship, but it's big enough. And when you come down through the atmosphere, this is what you see out the window. Those are pieces of your spaceship going by the window as the belly of your spaceship burns up. But it's thick enough so that when you get down in the thick air, you can open a parachute and watch how hard we hit the ground.
And touchdown.
And now inside. Антон сказал хорошо. Это не хорошо. Это ужасно. But it's like a car crash. But your vehicle doesn't just land, but you're in the wind. So your vehicle hits the ground and then rolls. And then rolls to a stop. And that's our spaceship when you come back to the Earth. And instead of your window being full of the universe, your window is full of dirt, full of Kazakhstan. And they open up the hatch and they drag you out, and it's like being born. I mean, you were in this nice warm place and someone drags you out and it's cold and noisy and windy, and there's people all over, and they plunk you down in your chair, and they give you a satellite phone to call your family, and you feel sick. You just want to throw up and cry and curl up in a little ball. But the real question is always, what are you going to do next? Your life is not what you've already done. You can't change it. And your life is not what you say you're going to do. Your life is just what did you choose to do next? So it's really important to think about, what am I going to do this evening? What am I going to do this weekend? How am I going to change who I am so that I can turn myself into the person that I dream of being? How am I going to stick my thumb up in the air and say, yeah, I feel sick and I'm tired, but I'm having a magnificent life, and the dreams of that little boy are coming true. All right, I'm going to come down and see if we can answer any questions. Okay, hopefully you can hear me. If anybody has a question, please just put your hand up and I will do my very best. And I don't speak Armenian, I apologize. Может быть, чуть-чуть по-русски, I speak English, okay? По-французски, je parle français si c'est nécessaire aussi. Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. It's nice to see everybody. When I was getting ready to go to my third space flight, my dad was old, my father was old, and he couldn't come with me. But he said, you're going to have to do some really complicated, dangerous, important things, he said, you have trained, you have studied, you have practiced. You need to trust yourself. Learn, do the work, change who you are, but then trust yourself. But the other piece is, get as much help as you can. You want to use every bit of brains that you have and all the brains that you can borrow. Use your whole crew and use everybody back on earth. Great. Next question. Yes, right here.
How did it actually change your attitude towards the Earth, flying into space?
How did flying in space change my attitude towards the Earth? I've been around the world 2,650 times. The first time you go around the world, you can't see it all. There's just too much. It overwhelms you. But the second time, and the fifth time, and the 10th time, and the 100th time, you start to actually see the world, the beauty of it, and the ancient age of it. And I found that the better that I understood the world, the more optimistic that I got, because the world is 4.5 billion years old, and there has been life on Earth without interruption for 4 billion years. We couldn't kill all the life on Earth if we wanted to. Life and the Earth are tough. So it really changed me into a permanent optimist, but a realist. In order to keep life good for us, to take care of all the 8 billion people, we're going to go over 8 billion people in November on Earth. To feed everybody, to have a good quality of life, it's going to take a lot of work. So I came back from space as an optimist, but someone who was ready to really dig in and teach and work and try and make life as good for as many people as possible. What I was thinking about was my rocket ship, because rocket ships are dangerous, and they try and kill you all the time. And that's why I learned to fly airplanes when I was 14, and why I studied in university and became a test pilot, so that I could fly this rocket ship and keep it from killing me and work with my crew. So most of what you think about is operating the spaceship. But I was also that little 9-year-old boy that I showed you the picture of. And that little boy, he was running around the cockpit screaming his head off because he was so excited because we were going to space today. So I looked all serious. Look at me. Mustache, short hair, very serious guy. My 9-year-old boy was going crazy when I went to space. Okay, we have a young lady coming from the front. I maybe have time for one or two more questions. No, this one right here. No, sorry, she called out. Sorry.
Can you tell me what made you not to give up?
Can you please repeat the question?
Ինչը դες դες չհանձնվել։
The easiest thing in the world is to give up. You can give up anytime, no matter what you're doing. You know, I'm learning guitar. It's too hard. I'm learning to ride a unicycle. I'm learning to speak Japanese. Whatever. You can always give up. But I think it's really important to have dreams. What do you dream of being? And you can't just count on luck to make your dreams come true. You make your dreams come true. And you do it by the little decisions you make every single day. You turn yourself into who you're going to be. And so I have lots of dreams. I'm 63 years old. My head is full of stuff that I dream of doing. And I choose what I'm going to do every day to try and get closer to my dreams. And it won't go well. Life is hard. Things will always go wrong. But I think it's really important to keep your dreams in the distance and choose what you're going to do every day so that it will drag your life a little closer to your dreams. And that's how I get to give up. Okay, one last question, this young man here. Just say it. Oh, here's my microphone. And then I have to go play guitar. And then we're out of time. Okay. Have I ever thought about my space missions failing? That's all you think about. If nothing goes wrong, then you don't need astronauts. Things go wrong all the time, every day. And not just in spaceships, but in your own life. And the best way to live life is to recognize that things are going to go wrong, and so get ready for it. Like, you can make a list. What are the 10 most likely things to go wrong with your spaceship this month, with your life this month? And are you ready for it? And if you're not, then how can you start getting ready for it? That's what I did for my whole life. And the beauty of it is, when things go wrong, you're ready for it. And you're not overwhelmed, you're not afraid, you're not helpless. You have control of your own future by always visualizing things going wrong and then getting ready to try and solve it. The next speaker after me is going to be the only Armenian who has ever flown in space, Jim Benjamin. He's going to be the next speaker. Jim Benjamin. But I'm going to play a little bit of the song and then I'll be done. One, two, three. I'm solid fuel and wires, turn the key in life. Merci.